Hi guys, welcome to today's tutorial. This is part 2 of the lesson generating maps showing spatial distribution in QGIS. You can follow part 1 from the links in the description below. In lesson 1, we covered interpolation of heavy metal concentration data for our area of interest and had the results for each. So let's go to QGIS and continue with the exercise. I'm going to open QGIS, and in our previous lesson we had gone through the interpolation of the different heavy metals, that is mercury, arsenic, nickel, zinc, cadmium, chromium, copper, and lead. And we had even gone ahead and styled one of the layers, which was mercury. So I'm going to just turn on the mercury layer, and this is our result for the mercury layer. So what we want to do today is we want to actually create the distribution maps for each and every element here. So we're going to start with the mercury, and this is the raster layer for mercury, including the styling of the layer. The first thing we want to do is we want to do away with excesses, the regions that are outside our area of interest. Remember, this is our area of interest. Let me just try and change the symbology of our area of interest so that it's a bit visible to everyone. So I'm going to just change the color, a brighter color. Then I'm going to also change the thickness. I want it to be a bit big so that it's visible. Then apply OK. So this is our region of interest. And our point data for the heavy metals, I'm just going to also change the symbology and put a different symbol, like say that. Nice bright red diamond. So actually this is the point data that we had, and this is our region of interest. So what we want to do is, now we have already done an IDW interpolation for mercury and all the other elements. So we want to start with mercury. The first thing we need to do is we need to clip the raster layer using our region of interest. To do the clipping is very simple process. We're going to go to raster, then we're going to select extraction, then we're going to select extract by mask layer, because we want to use our project area, which is Nairobi, as a mask layer. And then you're going to now put in parameters for this. So for the input layer, we're going to start with mercury. This is our raster layer, so I'm going to select mercury and drop it in my input layer. Then the mask layer is the project area, which is Nairobi. I'm going to insert that. Then I'm going to leave the source CRS and the target CRS as a blank. And then also I'm not going to assign any values here. And I'm just going to scroll down to the end. I'm going to just leave everything by this default. Then I'm going to create a permanent layer of this. So I'm going to click on this drop down here, click on save to file. So I'm going to create a new folder within the raster file. I'm going to call them clipped. So I'm going to say clipped. And within the clipped layer, I'm going to start with mercury. So I'm going to start with mercury. These are the clipped files. So I'm going to click on save. Then I'm going to click on run to run the process. And the clip is finished. So let's look at our results. I'm going to click on close, and now you can see now we have a new layer here for mercury. There's the initial one, which was mercury concentration, and we have now the clipped for mercury here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy the style, because you can see now this is a single band grayscale, and this one was already symbolized. So I'm just going to copy the same style that was in our initial layer, which was for the whole of this region here, and apply it to the clipped layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this style, right click, go to style, then I'm going to copy the style, and I'm going to make sure that I use the same style in my mercury layer. So I'm going to go to style again, then I'm going to paste the style, and you can see now there's a little bit of difference. So I'm going to remove now my initial layer. I can even uncheck it or just remove it completely from my QGIS. I'm going to remove it. So now we have the one for mercury. Now we need to do the same thing for all the other metals. So I'm going to go to now arsenic. You can see it's still grayscale because we had not done any symbology. So what the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clip it first. Then we are going to apply the same style that we have actually used in Mercury. So I'm going to go to raster again, then extraction, extract by mask. I'm going to do the same thing, and this time I'm going to select arsenic instead of mercury, and then I'm going to use the same layer, that is the project area, as my mask layer, and then I'm going to leave everything else the same, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to save a permanent layer here, save to file, and I'm going to save it now in my clipped file, and I'm going to say arsenic, and it's a TIFF file, so I'm going to click on save, and I'm going to click on run. The task is complete. I'm going to click on close, and then I'm going to see if actually it was clipped, and you can see it was clipped. So I'm going to remove the initial layer, which is arsenic, and I'm going to do the same thing for all the other layers before we can do the styling. So I'm going to fast forward this video so that you can go to the next step. The process is complete. So, and I'm going to remove also the last layer that I have actually clipped, which is lead. And remember, you can always run all these as a batch process by just going to raster, extraction, clip by mask. If you want to save on time, then instead of clipping one by one, you can just click on run as a batch process, and you insert all these layers here within this dialog box, and you can autofill everything and just run it as one process. But I've completed, so let's go to the next step. So we have the mercury, which we have already done symbolization of. So we're going to do the first map, which is of mercury. Then you're going to do subsequent maps of arsenic, nickel, zinc, cadmium, chromium, copper, and lead. So to create the distribution maps, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to project, and then we're going to go to the new print layout because you have to go to access the print composer. Then we're going to give the new print layout a title, and I'm going to call it distribution maps. Then I'm going to say OK. And the print composer interface appears, so I'm going to maximize it. Then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to first determine the kind of page size we want to do our map on. So I'm going to right click on the blank layer, then go to page properties, and you can see the current size which is preset is an A4 and it's landscape, but I want to have an A3. And it's actually now a bigger paper, 0 to 420 by width and height of 297. So I'm going to do a customization. I neither want a landscape nor a portrait. I want a page that has equal width and equal height. So I can see I have a width of 420. So I'm going to do the same thing for the height. I'm going to change it to 420. And now we have a page that is equal in width and length. So that is the first thing I'm going to do. So I've actually created a custom page for my maps. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now add my elements. And the first thing I'm going to be adding is my map. So I'm going to select on add item, then add map. Then I'm going to select where I want my first map, that is for Mercury, to be. I'm just going to select it up to maybe there. Then I'm going to rescale the map to maybe instead of 64,000, maybe 55,000, so that it can fit well in my work area. Then I'm going to just go back to QGIS so that I can turn off the base map so that you can just remain with the Mercury layer only. So I'm going to go back to QGIS. Then I'm going to turn off the Google Satellite Hybrid. Then I'm going to go back to my print composer, hit the refresh button, and I no longer have the base map. I'm also going to do the same thing. I can see the rivers are actually overlapping in my area. I don't want to see them. I need to go back to QGIS, remove the river, so you can only have this data here. So I'm going to just go back to the other side, hit the refresh button again, and now we have remained with the map and the sample locations. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a very nice frame. So I'm going to scroll down on the item properties, give it a frame. So after adding the frame, I'm going to add the other elements. So I'm going to add something like, say, the grid. I'm going to add the grid. And in the grid, I want to modify the grid. And I'm going to leave them as solids. For the X interval, I'll say 5,000 because it's UTM by maybe 5,000 for the X and the Y. Then the next thing I'm going to go to is the line style. I can change the line style if I want. Then the blending mode, I can change it if I want. Then the frame, I'm going to say maybe exterior ticks. I want to have exterior ticks. Then let me just zoom in to this map first, so that you can just work on everything, every element in this map. Then we're going to introduce all the other maps automatically. So I'm going to move the map down a bit, leave some space for the grids. Then I can now remove and say maybe frame annotations. I don't have the grids interfering with whatever information I have here. So then we're going to be adding the coordinates. So I'm going to say draw coordinates, and you can see it has drawn the coordinates, and it's in decimals. So you can actually change them to even custom, but I'm going to leave it as decimal. Then the left segment, which is this side, I'm going to make sure that they are vertical ascending, and also for the right side, I'm going to make sure that they're also vertical descending. I'm going to just use a vertical ascending. Then I'm going to, can see it has the decimal places, the values. So I'm going to just change the decimal places to maybe say under the precision, I'm going to make sure that it's to maybe 1 decimal place. Okay. Then that is it about the grids. You can actually change the fonts, the size, and all that. I'm actually not going to customize much of these grids because this is just for demonstration. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a north arrow. So add, then add north arrow. Then I'm going to add the north arrow here. Then I'm going to, you can actually add the scale. You can actually add the legend. I'm going to add the legend. And this is Mercury, so I'm going to remove everything else from view by making sure that I uncheck the auto update. Then I remove everything else. Then I'm going to customize that to mercury concentration. You can actually put the units milligrams per kg. Then I'm going to resize the legend so that it fits nicely. I can even remove project survey area because it's not really necessary. I just move it and put it somewhere nicely on my map. So that is the mercury concentration of milligrams per kg. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now create the other maps, which are around, I think, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 maps. So we need to create 8 more maps of the same. So I'm going to select this first map, copy, and because we are creating 8 more maps, so I'm going to just also do the same thing again. I'm going to paste another one again. And I already have now 3 maps. One is actually overlapping outside, but I know how to fix it later on. So I'm going to select the 3 maps. Then I'm going to click on group. Then I'm going to, now that they are grouped, I'm going to copy, then paste. And you can see I have pasted another group of maps here, 3 maps here. So we have now 1, 2, 6 maps. We need 2 more maps. So I'm going to also paste again. And we have some other maps here. And I'm going to actually delete one map, or I can leave it for the insert, but which is not a problem. So I have now 9 maps, but I want to delete one. So I'm going to ungroup again first. Then I'm going to delete one of the maps. But I have only 8 maps. Then I'm going to group them again. All of them now. And select all of them. Then I'm going to group them. And they are now in one group. Then I'm going to just resize them nicely to fit into my map canvas. After making sure that they have actually fitted very nicely into my work canvas, I am now going to ungroup them so that I no longer have them grouped. And now each and every map is independent on its own. The first map was Mercury. So I'm going to, since I've already finished working with Mercury, I'm going to lock the styles of Mercury. So before I do that, I'm going to go to the other side and check the heavy metal concentration so that I just remain with now the interpolation results. Then I'm going to come to this other side and I'm going to click on refresh, and you can see all the maps now change to the same. But now we want each and every map to be different depending on the kind of heavy metal that was investigated in the area. So I'm already done with the mercury concentration. I'm going to click on lock layer and lock style. Then I'm going to now go to the next map here, which is now going to be arsenic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my QGIS and I'm going to change to uncheck mercury, and I'm going to check arsenic, and I'm going to style arsenic first. So to style it, I'm going to go to properties. Then I'm going, instead of a single band grayscale, I'm going to say I want single band pseudo color. And you can see now the range of maximum and minimum are different from that one of mercury. I'm going to use discrete also. And I'm going to say, instead of, I'm actually going to also use the same color ramp that we used in the previous metal, which is concentration. Then I'm going to say should be equal interval, and I'm going to change the classes to 6 classes. So after that, I'm going to click on apply. Okay. And we have a result for arsenic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the other side of the QGIS composer. I'm going to hit on the refresh. And you can now see it has changed all the other maps apart from the one for mercury. So you can see, like, for example, there's a big blue dot here and there's none here. So we're going to now have this as arsenic. I'm going to click on the north arrow, copy. then paste it. And then I'm going to move it there very nicely. Then I'm going to now create a legend for arsenic. So I'm going to go to legend. I can even copy this legend and paste it there. Then it's still saying mercury. I'm going to change it. So instead of mercury, I'm going to click on add. And I'm going to say arsenic. Then okay. Then I'm going to remove mercury. And now I have arsenic and its concentration in milligrams per kg. So I'm just going to say arsenic concentration in milligrams per kg. And I'm also going to remove the band. So now I have a very nice legend for arsenic. So I'm going to go to the next map now. And before I go to the next map, now that I've already made for arsenic, I am going to select arsenic. And then I'm going to lock the layers and also lock the style. Then I'm going to scroll horizontally. And I'm going to now go to the third map, which is now showing the values of arsenic. But I want it to be another heavy metal. So I'm going to go now to nickel. That will be my third map. I am going to add a scale because they are of the same scale. I'm going to add the scale bar so that we can have one scale bar for all the maps. Add an item. Add scale bar. And add a scale bar here. Six. And then I move it somewhere. And I can also add some more information about these maps, including a table that just shows maybe which concentrations show high levels, because for the different metals, they have different kinds of concentration. But since I don't have that information right now, I'm not going to add it. You can also add some credits to this map. And then finally, The last thing you're going to do is now you're going to export this map as a JPEG or as a PDF so that we can be able to now look at it and include it in our report. So I'm going to add it, I'm going to save it as a PDF file, go to layout, I'm going to save the project first, then I'm going to go to layout, then export as image, then I can export it in my distribution map exercise. I can create a new folder, call it maps. Then this is my first draft. So distribution maps, map 1, and save. Then I'm going to leave it at 300 dpi, but if you increase the dpi, then the map becomes clearer and clearer. I need to save it like that. I can actually look at the map that I have just saved. And you can see we now have all the maps required for our report, including all the elements like mercury, arsenic, nickel, zinc, cadmium, chromium, lead, and copper. And you can actually see now the different levels of concentration in the different areas. That's it for today's exercise. If you found this video useful and you want to learn more on QGIS, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Otherwise, I'm just happy you're here. See you in my next video.